James Harden doesn't want to be in Philly, but that doesn't mean Philly has to give him up. He only has a year left on his contract, and things are getting pretty interesting. Let's talk about it. Listen, if you're new to the channel, it's your boy P.kidd. This is P.kidd Talks NBA. You know what you clicked on. You know why you came. Let's just get into it. Listen, James Harden is, I hate to say it, James Harden is going to go down as one of the top shooting guards that have ever played the game of basketball. And that's saying a lot. I'm not a James Harden fan per se. I don't have any hate against him as a person, but realistically, his game has just never really resonated with me. I've always been enthralled with what he can do, but the inconsistency of it, especially in big moments, has been so consistent that it's one of those things where he's probably one of the best regular season shooting guards you've ever seen. However, last season, he played point. And not only did he play point, he led the league in assists. And if you look at his numbers, and you really have to look at him, he's been put on the clinic for a very long time. And it's one of those things where no matter what your personal opinion of him is, no matter what you ultimately think of him and his off-court antics and how he's forced his way, well, seemingly, that's the narrative, out of certain situations, the numbers are there. But ultimately, does it really translate to wins on the court? Kind of, sort of, it does. I mean, Philly was one of the favorites last season, and they got pretty close. I mean, they were forced to a Game 7 against the Celtics, in which, if it wasn't for Jason Tatum finally clicking, getting it together in the last quarter of that particular series, we could have been looking at an entirely different situation with the Miami Heat and Philadelphia 76ers instead of Miami versus the Celtics. But that's not what we got. And now, ultimately, with James Harden taking less, this, that, and the other, is he even worth the hassle anymore? And that's a really good question if you think about it. Like, ultimately, I'm not going to sit here. This video is not going to give you anything you haven't heard in the last 6 hours. James Harden doesn't want to be there. He's called Daryl Morey a liar. I'm not going to speculate as to what happened. What we will sit here and do is we are going to sit there and go over the facts that Daryl Morey did try to trade him. Daryl Morey did actually try to trade James Harden. There was no ambiguity behind it. They were in talks with the Clippers. The Clippers pretty much drew a line in the sand and talks fell apart. The problem with this is James Harden only gave one team to go to. And when you only give one team to go to, you limit the people who do business with you and the options of getting you an equitable, fair trade, not just for you as the player, but for the organization, which I think we overlook at times as both fans. I don't think the players do, but sometimes it could be seemingly that's the case. They have to also do what's best for the organization. Dame is finding himself in that very, very similar situation. Now, I do think Portland did him dirty in some respects because they didn't get him adequate help considering the competition he faced in the West and what they did with those trade picks and not building around him. As opposed to James Harden's situation, I think Daryl Morey has built around him and given him some of the best people to work with at any given time that he had. In fact, there was only one particular team outside of the Cleveland Cavaliers who we even thought could beat the Golden State Warriors in their prime, and that was the Houston Rockets that Daryl Morey helped construct around James Harden. So if anything, this looks like one of those situations where James Harden was under the impression that I'm going to buy in, opt in rather. That's what I'm looking for. Opt in. You all are going to facilitate a trade, and then we'll let bygones, and we all sing kumbaya. I think they failed to realize that the team across from them could also say no. And when that happens, you have a situation where Daryl Morey is not going to give them up for nothing. Like, you only want to go to the Clippers? We traded with the Clippers? What do you want me to do? And no one's really talking about that. Like, everyone's kind of sweeping that part on the rug just because James Harden's come out and say, oh, Daryl Morey's a liar. I don't think he lied. I think it didn't work out the way he intended to. And I don't think he plans on trading James for just nothing. And if you really look at the market, I don't think anyone's going to give James Harden max money to go play with their particular team. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, you could sit there and rhyme and give any rhyme or reason as to why that's different. However, I don't see it. There's nothing that tells me that James Harden is going to get the money that he would have made if he stayed in Brooklyn. If James Harden would stay in Brooklyn, I think he was given like a $200 million max contract. or a contract extension of something of that sort, he's not going to be able to recoup that money again. At his age, what his reputation, what he's done, no one believes that you're going to get that same James Harden again. James Harden is not Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. Now, I'm not going to belabor Kevin Durant on all his other things, but if we're going to compare, especially if we're going to compare the OKC 3, Russ, KD, and James Harden, because we find two of them in a very similar situation, but one of them is highly lauded. Kevin Durant shows up and shows out when he's on the court and has been consistently KD anytime he's on the floor. Only thing that's belabored him is injury, which ultimately you can't do anything about. But when he's healthy, he's top 5 in the world, unquestionably. Top 3 for most opinion. Some people will argue top 1, 2, depending on who you put at 1. That's what it is. You've kind of never said that about James Harden. At the point that you could say about him, his usage rate was freakishly high. He was playing with the Houston Rockets, and then they couldn't get past the Golden State Warriors. It's the last time you said it. No one's going to give James Harden the credit for being one of the best point guards because he had Joel Embiid and things of that nature. And, now is that fair? Probably not. But it does hurt his market when you look at how he's performed in big game situations, how he's disappeared, even when he was the man, not just second fiddle or playing it. Even when he was playing his style of basketball, he didn't get it done. When you're up 3-2 on the Golden State Warriors, they didn't get it done. He's had opportunities multiple times in his career, and it's almost laughable if you look at it statistically how he just disappears in those particular moments when it actually matters, not when he's front running. You're going to see a lot of teams now not be in the market for him because of that. And so ultimately, I look at this and say, I don't think Daryl Morey did him wrong. I think James Harden didn't show up. And I think James Harden's career, James Harden's reputation, and ultimately just how he just showed up in those last months is going to end up being the deciding factor as to whether or not this is the last big money contract he's going to get. And if you ask me, I don't know any other team that'd be willing to give him max money to stay around. The league is going younger. The league has changed. And guess what? With the new CBA, he's not going to be able to sit out. He's not going to be able to sit out the same way he would have done in any other situation. The new CBA actually forbids it. There are consequences and repercussions if a player decides to take that type of action by not showing up, by not playing. And if he shows up and doesn't play and doesn't look good, then he hurts his own trade value, which ultimately does no one any good. In my most humble opinion, James Harden is in a situation where he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because ultimately, while this may be a sign that he doesn't want to go for anybody, this, that, and the other, if he is forced, if Daryl Morey is forced, and James Harden is blowing this situation up, blowing this relationship up, it doesn't stop Daryl Morey from sending him to a team that's going absolutely nowhere. And so it begs the question, does James Harden want to win? Or does he just want to get paid? And ultimately, it's kind of showing me that he just wants to get paid. Because I've never looked at him as a winner. Even when he's at the best opportunities, I've just never looked at him as a winner. And some of the best minds in basketball have said you're not going to win with his style of basketball. And he hasn't. But I want to hear your thoughts, man. I want to hear what you ultimately think with James Harden. I think that Daryl Morey actually did try to do what he was asked to do. It just didn't work out. And that happens. Like, no one can force the Clippers to give Daryl Morey what he's asking for James Harden. Daryl Morey wants picks. He wants a star player. James Harden is worth some picks. Now, how many is different story. He is worth a star player. Whether you like it or not, and I'm not a huge fan of his style of game, he was still highest assist total, the assist leader last season, one of the better PGs from that perspective in the game. And you have to give him credit. But again, I want to hear your thoughts. Whether it's love, whether it's hate, put it in the comments. I'll be in there with you. Till next time, man. Peace.